Okay, so this sucker was dropped. So to fix this, I'm going to need a few tools. Have some tape, a couple different screwdrivers, a slot for prying, a little hook if you need to pry it, Phillips, a star. I like to have a little pair of needle nose with a bent to it, and another smaller Phillips screwdriver. So let's get at it. So let's take this puppy apart. So there are screws in the handle, so we'll take the screws off the handle first. And let's use the big one. Keep those to the side. Now the screw at the top, I had lost it previously, so I had to get another one. So this one actually, I need a slot for this, but it's not. It doesn't normally come with a slot. It comes with a smaller one, quite small actually. Okay, so that's the handle. Now underneath, there's a little tab down here. Flick that up, and apart it comes. There's one half. There's a trigger button. Okay, so that's that mechanism. So let's take the base off. Actually, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to and it's always best to keep your hand squeezing the two halves together, because if you haven't opened up one of these things before, any device for that matter, you're never sure if it's spring loaded and you open it up and things start popping out on you. So I just kept that pressed together. Come on, get these out of the way. And let's see what happens here. Haha. So I've got a hook there. Let's take this off. So taking this off, and there's a couple of things holding the top of the joystick to the base, and it's a connector here, and then a connector there. And let's see if I can get these off without causing too much damage. One. Oh, there we go. So that's that. I'm going to take off here. Now this is the little circuit board that controls, or rather sends the signal for the left side buttons. Okay, so these little guys here. Now there is a spring to them and a click, so they do work. I know the number. Which one is it? The 7 button? Yeah, the 7 is sort of intermittent, but hey, what the heck, it's an old abused joystick. This thing here, I don't think I need to take this sensor off, but this is the throttle control. I need to have a look at that, because as you saw, the throttle is a little bit out of whack. You can't get it any lower. So just in case I damage something, let me see if I can take this out. There we go, it's off. So I can just see the screwdriver down there. I wouldn't be surprised if that got out of whack with this, because right here, that's your sensor. You might be able to see just spin, if I get the right angle, with inside there. See that? No? Okay. Anyway, that gear needs to be lined up with the gears on this to make sure that there's the full movement of the throttle control. So let's go down there. I'll put these on so I can see better. So that's all the way down. It's pretty clean in there. Poke around like a dentist does. Okay. I can't see any damage looking at it with my magnifying glass. It's a little bit dirty. A little bit dirty. However, it's not too bad. So let's reassemble this, have a look at it. So I'm thinking that it was just out of whack, knocked out of whack here. So it'll take a little bit of mucking about with it just to get everything lined up. Let's see. It's not bad. It seems to stop right there. That might work. That's the full throttle here. No resistance. So the gear is completely engaged. It moves, rotates completely as with the throttle control. So I will put the 4 screws back in. These are the press that. So how these buttons here work, it's just a piece of plastic there. When you press it, there's resistance. You see? So anyways, that one, resistance. This one here. Plastic spring of sorts there. It doesn't work too well, does it now? And of course these are the buttons I'm having problems with. So let me just chuck these again. So I tighten up the one screw a little bit. There has to be a certain amount of resistance on the spring too, because perhaps you can just hear it. It could be I just pressed these buttons too much over the years, and I might need a new joystick. Okay. Let's get down into the guts of this thing. Again, I'll need to carefully pry off connectors. Need to be delicate and gentle. And I'll show you these things in there bend very, very simply. You got to be careful. There it is. Those there. You bend those, you got an issue. They got to be straight. You don't want to bend those. Okay, let's pull this off. Now I have taken this apart previously, and what I had found was that the a couple of the sensors had, I'm not sure if it was a liquid in there or extraordinarily thin grease, not sure. Need to remove this. So again, I'll remove another connector. Okay, tell you what, I won't bother. I'll just take this off here. Okay, so as you can, actually, you know something? I better take this puppy off, or I'm going to do some damage somewhere. Oops, daisy along the way. Where's my other screwdriver got? There it is. There we go. That's better. That's off. Now let's have a look at the base here. So, how this is assembled, you have a little plastic. You'll notice that you can only insert this one way. One is thicker than the other. Cylinders. And you can't really put it on this way because it doesn't go any further, but if you put it this way, you can actually come in contact with the bottom spring, and this is what gives you your resistance on your X and Y axes. If I put this back on, you can feel that there, and when your actual joystick, it's just fits over top like so. It just provides resistance. So that's there. So previously I did clean this out. A little bit of crap in there, a little bit of dust. I vacuumed it out. Sometimes if you banged it too hard, these sensors could have come out of whack. Let me show you what you can do with these sensors. Be very careful with this. There's a guiding slot right there. So when you take, if you need to take it off or it's come loose, you need to very carefully just pull it off. Very carefully, just a little bit. And I'll show you what gives the resistance. As you'll see, there's an orientation you have to put it in. There's somewhat of a keyway, so to speak. And this here fits in it. This part here, piece of metal, and this top part's piece, that top piece there is what keeps it from slipping out. So to replace it, line it up so this is in here correctly. And anyway, this go back again. This is, the electrics are in there. It determines the orientation and position of the joystick, one of the axes. So I got it in the slot, and I'm going to line up the guide. So there it is, and it fits just in there like that. The other one works the same way. I'm not going to bother taking it off. Anyway, that's that. So when I checked it earlier, there was a liquid coming out of here. I'm not sure what the heck it was. I cleaned it up a bit. And let's go with it just the way it is now then. Let's install, sure it's lined up correctly, yep. Let's install these before we get them back in. It might be a bit easier. Again, there is that spring down below and provides resistance. So let's put these 4 screws back in first. And I'm going to torque them down like I would if you were putting on tires on a car. Put it down a bit on one side, go across the diagonal. Down, go across the diagonal. On. That's on. That's tight. Good to go. So let's put this board back on. You'll notice that there's a guide little slot right here that will fit on this little bit here. Okay, it's a guide. There it is. Bang on. Drop the screws back in. Okay, so let's get this connected back on. Here are the buttons. The buttons have to face the keys. There's a guide slot right there. Press that down and we have a connection there. Put a screw in. I can also see if I wanted to. Right there, you can see it. Should be able to hear the click. That wasn't also good. There you go. So they all seem to work. So let's get this back through. I need to connect this. I've got two things to connect. I've got to connect this back to the throttle control. And that goes in easy enough. And this goes, and just be careful when you line these up. They got all the small holes. You don't want to be putting it on backwards because you could end up getting the pins all messed up. Yep. Okay. So twist this, twist that around, because you'll see that this part here drops in there is your guide. And you also have to make sure that this cable fits in the lower part. It's shaped for the cable. So when you shut it, it will lock it in place. Now, there's a little bit of resistance because it needs to seal up the rubber gasket there. But this feels like there's a little bit too much resistance. So let me just check underneath to see if there's any cables that are mashed up where they shouldn't be. It seems, oh, forgot to put this down. Okay, those look good. That one's in good. That one's in good now. Okay, we put a couple of starter screws in here. Again, hold both halves. Your thumb and fingers. Stick that one down in here. Okay, let's put the rest of them in. slightly magnetized screwdriver. Okay, so here comes, this part is slightly tricky. Let me just take a video of this. Okay, so right here, it's a spring. And what you have to do is make sure that, I'll do the camera, the lower goes on the one side and you move the other over top, so it straddles the little tab there. See, one on that side and one on that side. Now that's important because when you reassemble your hand, either side, these two pieces here, 1, 2, have to fit around these two sides. They have to straddle it. And what this does, it gives your yaw control resistance. So, a trick to put these things together, because playing with these, trying to get these attached, is quite finicky. You'll just need some tape. Oop, insert your button in here. There's just a little hinge pin there. Hold it in place. Stick your tape on there, and it's not going to fall out. If your trigger comes off, make sure this little tab rather, is over top of there. Slide it on the axle. And there's a little spring that's down, right down here. Make sure that's where it should be. Very straightforward. Just gives you that little bit of resistance. That's all it takes. Anyway, you don't need to tape that one up. But what you want to do is put a piece of tape and connect that, your button. Your hat buttons, just put it together like that and tape it. And again, this stops it from falling out because it can be very finicky. Now let's turn it this way a little bit. We're going to try to get these wires remember, we have to insert those tangs there in and around the mounting point in there, or whatever you want to call that sucker. So I rather orient it this way. I'm going to just get it in there, and it lines up perfectly. If you're a little bit to the side, what I mean by the side, if you're to the side, it's not going to work properly. You have to be oriented perfectly square. There we go. We have resistance there. Now it's just a case of getting these wires tucked out of the way so they're not interfering with anything. Fits rather good. Okay, that little tab down here is already slipped into place quite nicely. It's all lined up. Nothing fell out, so let's put these screws back in. I'm just trying to figure out how I started up with a couple extra here. yaw. Take the tape off. Trigger. Button. That seems to have full movement. So there you go. Logitech Extreme 3D Pro. It's a relatively good working joystick, and it's given me a few years worth of use.